It's officially Marketing a Talk. Marketing O'Clock's monthly roundtable discussion episode. Join our team in a panel of experts to dive deep into a specific digital marketing topic. Don't forget, you can catch our famous Friday news show each and every Friday morning at youtube.marketingoclock.com or wherever you consume your podcast.
Hey there, I'm Christine Zernheld.
AKA Shop.
And it is officially Marketing a Talk. Today, we're going to take a step back and discuss the state of PPC as of right now, August 2021. And we are so lucky to be joined by some of the best and brightest in the industry. First, we are joined by Marketing O'Clock and Cypress North's own Mark Saltarelli. Mark, thanks for being here. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. You know, it's my favorite place to be.
Yeah, not that you had a choice.
And
we are also so happy to be joined once again by your favorite PPC chat moderator and president of Neptune Moon, Julie Bacchini. Hi, Julie. Good to see you.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. I love hanging out with you guys.
Thanks for being here. One of our favorites. And finally, we are joined for the first and hopefully not the last time by Stella Rising's Associate Director of Search Engine Marketing, Anastasia Sorokina. Hi, Anastasia. How are you?
Hi. Thank you guys for having me. So excited to be here and talk PPC today.
We're so excited to have you here. It has been almost 1 year since we had our very first Marketing a Talk, if you can believe it, about big changes that were happening in Google Ads. So we feel like it's a good time to talk about what's working hard, what's hardly working, and strategies that you can test in your Google Ads and Microsoft advertising accounts. And Mark and Julie were actually there for that first episode. So we're excited to be joined by you again and get your thoughts and Anastasia's.
I can't believe it's 1 year.
I know. I actually thought it was 2 when I set up the notes. And I wrote all of them as if it had been 2 years. And then I was like, oh, it's only been 1.
It feels like 2.
So let's get into it. From a business standpoint, 2020 and 2021 were both really weird years. Some businesses saw huge growth and some were forced to shut down. Can you guys give us a quick temperature check on how things are going from an agency standpoint for you guys? How have things changed over the past 2 years? And Mark, I will start with you.
Mm-hmm. I would say here, things have been pretty crazy. I think since the onset, a lot of companies have been kind of reallocating their traditional like event marketing budgets into digital. And we've been so busy on the digital marketing side. We've been having to push clients out and be like, wait until the seasonal client leaves and then you can come on and we'll onboard you. And we've just been insanely busy, and it's been extremely fortunate for us that we've been able to hire a lot of new people here at Cypress North, including Caleb, full-time producer. And it's been Caleb. Really great. I think the one really big thing that I'm noticing is that the types of clients I'm seeing has changed a little bit. I would say pre-pandemic, a lot of the clients we were getting knew a lot about digital marketing and why it was valuable and how it worked, but weren't able to do that themselves and kind of just came to us and trusted us as a partner. And we just kind of worked hand in hand and did things. And I'm seeing a lot of my newer clients, they don't really know anything at all about digital. And besides the relationship of wanting us to do everything for them, they also want a lot of learning and education. And I'm getting a lot of very interesting questions that I used to never get. And clients want to know a lot about kind of what we're doing and kind of how everything is working and how different aspects of PPC work and like what close variant matching is. And there's just a lot more education going on. And it's been very exciting to be able to share that knowledge with clients.
Yeah. So from a hiring standpoint, you mentioned we were able to find Caleb, but would you say it's been easy to find talent recently or a little more difficult?
No, it's been very difficult. I think there are a lot of jobs out there right now in digital marketing, and it's a crazy time for people to be applying, especially if you're hiring locally rather than nationally as remote. I think it's taken us a lot of time to find the people we have found, and we do currently have an open job rec if you're in Western New York. So
yeah, little plug there.
It's been difficult to find people in PPC for us.
Yeah. How have things been at Neptune Moon, Julie?
It's been, it's been bumpy. throughout the last year and a half. I would agree with what Mark was saying. There are definitely people who seem like they're getting into digital for the first time. I also have had an uptick in clients who were working with someone else in digital who really either didn't know what they were doing or were operating kind of in the like set it and forget it, growing based on churn. I feel like I've had more, like there's always been that, right? When you have somebody moving to a different agency, they're unhappy for one reason or another. But I feel like in the last year, roughly, I've had more clients come to me who are coming off an experience where they're like, nobody's explaining what they're doing. It doesn't really seem like they're doing a whole lot for us. They want to understand, not necessarily to the point where they want to micromanage, but they really are invested at a different level, I think, now than, maybe they were years prior. So they want to know what you're doing, how you're doing it. They're paying pretty close attention. And so wanting to know, like, why are we showing up for, things that are completely irrelevant? And you can kind of tell that there are practitioners out there who are not being terribly vigilant when it comes to, trying to be more specific in where the clients are spending money and what they're matching. I mean, I'm sure we're going to get into talking about the whole Google keyword matching later in more detail, but that's had a big impact for established clients and then for newer clients who are coming in as well.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes those clients that ask more questions, it takes work to answer the questions in the moment, but they often turn out to be better clients who like care about what you're doing more. Do you feel the same way? And they see the value? Yeah,
I say generally, yes. As long as it doesn't tip into that space where then they're like, I was looking in the, you want that hit that sweet spot where they're invested in the process and what's happening. And they want to be a proactive part of that process, but they're not driving you bananas with, all these emails, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week of like, hey, I just popped in and I was looking at this or checking that, it's finding that balance between getting them involved and motivated and understanding and wanting to be a partner really in the process, but not creating a monster where, they're in there double checking and they're asking you questions where you're just like, oh my gosh, please just let me do my thing.
Gotta find the balance.
Because then it's like, why am I even here if you're the one poking around in the ad accounts?
Yeah, exactly.
How are things at Stella rising, Anastasia?
We've been pretty lucky with clients. I think we kept majority of clients through COVID, and we have a big chunk of retail and beauty clients, so those are growing budgets are crazy right now. So we are hiring too. We need more people rather than clients at this point. We also noticed that I think CPG was surprising for me because they started growing their budget significantly to support the direct-to-consumer lines. A lot of brands now, instead of selling on Amazon and through grocery stores, they realize they can sell from the website. Mm-hmm. And that's what's been going on at CPG. I would say there are some challenges this year for sure. And especially with kind of the year-over-year performance, especially for beauty, because trends are changing. Like skincare was booming last year, but if you look in this year, I see more demand for makeup and for beauty services, like going to hair salons and things like that. So people taking off their masks, they more comfortable socializing or going to the hair salon. So those things are changing, and a lot of clients in skincare are like, oh my God, why 2019 looks better than 2021? But this is why, because things are changing and trends are shifting in the industry right now. I would say also another thing that I noticed is competition. Again, more and more people in the market right now, and CPCs are growing crazy up. And that's been hard, kind of keep existing clients profitable and cost efficient when that's happening in the market and the industry.
So with more and more companies in the market, would you say that the demand for digital marketers is higher a year and a half into the pandemic?
I would say definitely. We are getting a lot more clients knocking on our door, and we're actually turning them away as well. So some clients just not suitable for our agency, and I think also our business development people kind of have a really good screening system, where they don't want to take some of the clients that are going to be more work for us and really not good for our agency morale.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's hard, but you got to find the right fit.
Exactly.
So now I want to get into what is new with the ad platform specifically. So is there anything new that Google or Microsoft introduced fairly recently? We can be a little flexible with this, that is working well in your accounts. Mark, I'll start with you for this one.
I would say one thing I love, and I'm going to talk about HubSpot because I always talk about HubSpot, but HubSpot Ads, which is one of my favorite add-ons that they added to Marketing Pro, now allows you to sync opportunities and customers with their deal values over to Google Ads as a conversion. And historically, if you wanted to do that and sync opportunity or deal or customer values from a CRM, it was a lot of manual work to get that to sync over to Google Ads. And now it just takes a click of 2 buttons and you're there. So that has been really cool. Usually, in B2B, sales cycles are too long for that to matter for optimizing for target ROAS or any other automated bid strategy, but it is cool to see that for reporting. Another really easy one is just kind of the different organizations of bid strategies and adding those, not bid strategies, the different organizations for conversions and like kind of the types of conversions kind of makes it easier when taking over a client account and understanding the conversions they set up and kind of what they are and why they set them up. Because for some reason, people are really good at selecting like the sub conversion event that it is, but they don't name them very well. So it makes it a lot easier to take over an account from someone else. And another one that really hit home for me recently is the ability to share remarketing lists across a manager account. Because recently I had a client who their old ad account was being held hostage by their last agency, and we had everything ready to go to launch. And then the day before we're about to launch, they're like, hey, the agency actually gave us access to our ads account, and they wanted to run everything out of it. And while it's really easy to copy and paste all of your campaigns or sync them over, you can't just do that with audiences. But now with being able to share those remarketing lists through the manager account, it was really easy to sync over the remarketing lists for the RLSAs and the display remarketing campaigns over to their other ad account. Kind of the only other way to do this before was if you were managing your audiences through Google Analytics.
Awesome. All welcome changes. Julie, is there anything new that you're loving?
That's interesting. The remarketing thing across I haven't had a situation where sharing it across accounts would have worked the way that you just, like where you're basically doing like the old account into the new. I'm going to file that away, because that will be very, very helpful, when you get in those situations where you don't have access to something that you desperately need access to. I'm going to take a different approach.
No problem.
I'm finding fewer things that work well and more things that are giving me headaches. So my answer to this would be fairly short. And it's probably a function of the types of accounts that I work on. I have a fair number of B2B, which, as Mark was saying, you have this long sales cycle, and it doesn't lend itself towards the way that Google likes to do things and manage things. It's so much more geared towards, all of the automation and the conversions and all that happening in a pretty quick window, which just doesn't happen on the B2B side of things, hardly ever.
Yeah.
So all of those features that, everyone talks about that are the automation helping, I'm not seeing as much of that because my client mix just doesn't have that kind of timeline for the conversions happening. So I'm not as wild about a lot of the stuff. I like conceptually, I understand why it works and why it works well in the situations that it does. And that's wonderful. But it does not work equally well across all types of businesses. So
That makes sense. And like you
Yeah.
said, sometimes we'll report on things and it'll be like, oh, shared remarketing lists across accounts. Who cares until you need it. And then you're like, oh, this is why.
Hooray.
So maybe this is a better question for Anastasia from the direct to consumer side. Is there anything new that you're loving?
Yes, we've been testing smart shopping a lot, and I'll be talking a lot about this today. But it's been working, for certain clients. We're facing, of course, some challenges, but we'll go into details more because I'm sure we're going to talk more about automation there. Another thing that we've recently been trying is augmented reality within the YouTube ads.
Oh,
That's
wow.
been pretty cool, yeah. So we tried to try on AR ads for beauty. Now it's actually coming out for retail clients, but it's been pretty interesting test. We saw high engagement. We even saw increase in brand awareness. We measured that with brand lift studies, but again, you have to have a nice budget to get into some of those tools and try some of that. But it's been pretty cool to, have access to that. One of the things that Google been releasing recently and worked for us, local service ads been working pretty well because we work with some of the hyper local type of service businesses. We have this real estate client who has a ton of local brokerages, and it's really hard for them to stay afloat with just regular search campaigns because they don't have enough budget to fund some of the numbering keywords or even do some of their awareness. So that tool was working well for them because you pay per lead and you can also adjust and kind of manage your budget on your own. Recently, we also been involved in Google international growth program. That's been pretty cool because we do have fair share of international clients or clients who want to go international, and they've been pretty helpful on the Google side. Actually, I was very surprised. They literally walk through every client, through every recommendation. They have tools and resources to really help them understand some of the things the client needs to improve on their side before they go into a certain market.
Wow, you're taking advantage of a lot of the awesome new features. I'd love to know
That's
more about
the
the
advantage to be being like in I would say larger agency or mid-sized agency, because you do get to try a lot of tools like that, but it also comes with a price because Google pushes you to try all of these new tools, all the automation, things like that.
Yeah. And just being direct to consumer, I think they seem to make more stuff that is for direct to consumer, and the B2B people are kind of left out sometimes, which brings me to our next question. I'll come to you, Julie. Anything new that is hardly working for you?
I mean, I want to use more automation. I really do. I mean, I've been doing this forever, and it's a bit of a philosophical struggle for me because I've done, everything manually for so long, but I really want to be able to utilize it more because I realize that, this train has left the station some time ago and it isn't going to turn around, right? Like, this is where everything is going. Everything is going to become more automated, but it's hard to make it work well for certain types of accounts. And, I know we sort of joke every year when Google has their, their marketing live event, and they come out with their announcements of, what's on the horizon and what's coming and what they're working on. And all of us snarky B2B people are just like, nothing for B2B again. That's been going on forever. So it's a bit of a joke, right? When we're in that situation, but it's less funny when you're trying to manage accounts for clients and you're trying to find ways to retrofit almost, or make some of the automation be able to work because it's not designed for your particular use case. And I think that is a piece that continues to frustrate me and has been frustrating me for the last couple of years as the various automation pieces have rolled out. Like, I want to get on board, I want to embrace it, but it's hard to do when I find a lot of times like it just can't get enough momentum with the B2B stuff to really get going and to really find its footing in the same way that I know I'm hearing from other people. You know, we talk about all kinds of stuff during PPC chat, and it covers the gamut, and people who participate in it work in all different types of industries. So I know it's working well for a lot of people, and that's fantastic. I would love to see it work equally well, or at least reasonably well, like bring up a little bit, you know, like if it's up here for the commerce stuff and it's way down here for B2B, like I'd like to at least see the other stuff, you know, come up, you know, at least this far. Maybe it's never going to get to this point, but like, it would be nice to feel like it actually has a reasonable chance of success.
Yeah. So a lot of the new stuff they launch, it sounds like you don't even get a chance to try from the B2B because it's just not made for you.
I mean, I am trying to try it because I don't want to be sitting over here and being like, well, that's not going to work. Like, I mean, that feels like a bad attitude, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly will not hold back when I have opinions about what Google's doing and why they're doing it. But I also don't want to be stubborn and just feel like, oh, you know, here's Google doing stuff that like doesn't apply. Well, maybe it can apply. Like sometimes you do have things that seem like I'm not sure if this is going to work, right? But I'm always open to trying it to see like, well, it doesn't, like in my head and with my experience, I feel like I'm having trouble envisioning like how this is going to be successful. But sometimes it surprises you and you use something, you're like, I didn't see that coming. And then you can replicate that out. So I don't want to miss an opportunity to be able to find something that either surprises me in how it works, or that I'm able to figure out a way to maybe use it slightly, you know, I use the term like off label, you know, like they talk about in medication, like you find out a way to sort of like use something in a little bit of an off label way. And then you're like, oh, well, this isn't exactly like how it was intended. But if you are kind of working it in this way, you might be able to, you know, have it work a little bit better for you. So I want to be creative. I want to be figuring out some of the stuff. I just feel like it's a slog.
Yeah. And I feel like that goes back to when they introduce new things and you're like, who would use this? You just got to remember what they are, you know, listen to Marketing O'Clock, keep up on the news, because you never know when you can try something in a different way.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, anything that's hardly working for you?
Yeah, and this is directly like related to what Julie was saying. And it's like, oh, there's never anything coming out for B2B. And then finally we get lead gen form extensions. And it's finally like, oh, there's something for us B2B people. This is fantastic. I was through the moon. I've been using them on Facebook and LinkedIn for years. And they have been so disappointing.
I agree.
It's just sad how they give you a ton of options. They're very flexible, but they don't have much of an impact. And I was very excited when they gave you the option to send campaign traffic directly to a lead gen form without a landing page. And I did that as an experiment for one of my clients. And Google said, this is available in all countries, on all devices. This will show up regardless. And the experiment with the lead gen form had a third of the impressions of the A variant of the campaign that was going to a landing page. So they're clearly not able to show on all devices if impressions are being cut by that much, which is supposed to be a 50-50 impression split. Mm-hmm. So that was crazy. And then the other huge thing is that the submissions don't collect keyword data. So you can't see where these conversions are coming from in your CRM. So once these leads go in your CRM, you can see which campaign it came from, but you have no idea what the keyword that person was searching was. So that was just, I'm like, how do you have a search feature that doesn't involve keywords in that way?
Right.
I just thought that was crazy.
So it sounds like it's not necessarily that, you know, they don't work, but they're not serving. And because they might not show on all devices and you don't have the data to back it up, right?
Yes. And it's just not working how I would have envisioned it and like how it would have been most helpful. Now I think it's just kind of one of those extension types you add because it could do something, but they really aren't maximizing the potential that they have with lead gen forms.
Yeah. Weep womp. Okay. And finally here, I wanted to ask you guys if there's anything that's not new, but that you have seen is working better in your accounts. Julie, I'll come back to you for this one to start.
I've been trying to do more with audiences. All the talk has been about your first party data and audiences. I mean, it feels like it is where it makes sense to invest a little time and energy. I hope at some point, I hate how in Google Ads, you're either targeting or observing, but you can't be like targeting some and observing others.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that is. Because it puts you in a bad position, to be able to, you end up spending a lot of time observing stuff because you're like, well, once I decide I'm going to target something, I can't observe things anymore. And I hope that is on my perennial list of things, especially with the big push towards audiences. I'm hoping that that's something that might change here in the next year or so, to give you the opportunity to target some audiences, but still be, observing others, because it seems like it's a aspect of the automation that you can take advantage of on the B2B side, or in any of the spaces where you're not having these rapid conversions, so that some of the bidding stuff struggles. At least you can be trying to layer in some audiences to let the machine learning do a little bit better by you, as far as, who they're showing your ads to, when they're showing them, that type of thing. So I have been spending more time and energy in the audience space, both from finding lists to utilize, but also looking at sort of what's available, because that is constantly changing. Even if you've looked at it, within the last 6 months, you might want to take another look.
Yeah.
Because they're constantly changing, like what's in there and what's available. So you may go in and find at one point, I had this happen with one particular client. We went in and we tried to find audiences, both for exclusion and also for targeting, that might be relevant. And we didn't find a whole lot at that point, which was kind of disappointing. But I went back in recently and I looked again, and there were actually, there were a few more audiences that felt we wanted to, observe and take a look at. So I would say, keep an eye on what's going on with audiences, like check in with it every, maybe like once a quarter, go
Definitely.
in and give it a check and see if anything has changed as far as like what's in there, what's available, what you might have access to that you didn't previously.
Yeah, that's a great reminder.
And
Anastasia.
can I say something to
Go
that?
ahead. Yep.
I think that is really interesting about the targeting versus observation, because you can do that in display in the ad group settings, where you can add an additional observation, but you can't do it in search for whatever reason. And it's like, you already have that technology. Why don't you just roll that out to search?
Or even if you wanted to target the broader category and then observe the subcategories under it, you can't even do that.
It makes me crazy.
Okay, Anastasia, anything that surprised you? And I'm realizing I skipped you for the last question. So if there's something new that's hardly working, let us know.
Well, we tried to test Performance Max campaigns and really don't want to test them, for obvious reasons. But again, we kind of always trying to get something new in our accounts, try some new stuff, and hopefully, especially direct to consumer, that might work a little better. Now they released any Performance Max campaigns with shopping feeds, so that might help a little bit better the performance. But again, Performance Max is taking over prioritizing. It gets prioritized over your search campaigns, your standard display campaigns.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's the main issue here. They say, well, keep your search campaigns kind of running along the side, but it will prioritize smart campaigns.
I didn't know that.
Over it, yeah. And I've seen people saying, oh, it's working. But again, you can't see what's actually working. Is it a bunch of, brand keywords that it's working on? Or now with shopping, is it going to be just a remarketing audiences and things like that? So it's been that one I kind of a little bit more cautious about. You also do need to have a big budget to start with the new beta. So that one is on the fence about, but I do know some people are starting to try them in the agency. So
it's got to be so hard to measure success if it's like eating up your search volume.
What do you compare that against? If it's prioritizing some of your search and display campaigns, what is that, getting to compare to if it's taking over the traffic, cannibalizing the traffic? at the end of the day. Yeah, but from the things that been working, actually I agree with Julie, we've been using a lot more audiences these days. They are more granular right now, especially for real estate. I found a lot of good audiences there. It is frustrating that you can target and observe because nowadays we actually structure some of the campaigns that are around some of the audience or customer profile. So we do need to have some performance data to understand if certain audience is working for me. So that's been tested lately. I would say actually DSA is working pretty well for me, which is surprising. I always, was more cautious about DSA just because of things that I could match out to. For some very, well-developed websites or some of the retail e-com clients that have a big feed, you'll be able to actually get some results from DSA. Also, I think it works better with smart bidding.
Okay.
I feel like Google has a little bit more of a direction where it goes. If you have TCPA or TRS goal assigned to it. And again, I always have a ton of negatives when it comes to it and want to make sure that it's not really eating the traffic away from the keywords that I'm targeting. And shopping campaigns. Yeah, smart shopping. It's been a success for us for some clients. And again, there's a lot of challenges that we're facing currently as well. But if clients want to scale their sales and some of the products, they have a large feed in, some of the products really not working, smart shopping really comes to play.
That's great. Good to see automation working in some applications. Mark, what do you think? Anything that's working better than it was?
Yes, and I'm actually happy the way the conversation is going, so I'm going to pull both something from Anastasia and from Julie, and it's kind of figuring out how to make the new things Google is coming out with work for B2B. And I've been seeing a lot of success with DSAs with target CPA for some of my SaaS clients who have different modules of their product. So typically when we think of DSAs, we think of e-commerce companies with a lot of products, and we can't be doing a lot of search ad groups. But I've been able to kind of make page groups about certain modules of the software or different software products that a SaaS company has and actually get demo requests that way. And when combined with target CPA, actually allows us to convert on keywords that we wouldn't be able to do on eCPC in our other campaigns because they're too broad, but combining those two pieces of automation, it actually is really successful and can get you some strong leads at a decent cost. The one thing, like Anastasia said, is you need to be very careful with your negatives. Immediately, if you're doing DSAs, exclude all of your branded terms because it's going to favor branded based on the website pages, and exclude your keywords from your search campaign so you're not cannibalizing yourself. But it actually really can work for B2B if you set it up properly.
Awesome. Definitely worth a shot for the right site. Okay, so to get a little more granular here, I want to talk about separate components of a campaign. So let's start with keywords because this was a huge topic from that episode we had with Julie and Mark a year ago. From the keywords you can actually see, Julie, how has keyword matching been going in your accounts? Are you seeing an impact from the phase out of broad match modified? And in close variant, are close variants still a big issue?
Yes.
I asked like 5 questions there. Take it however you want.
Yes, the close variants. I feel like each month it just gets worse. I don't know if everyone else is having the same experience, but between like what's getting matched, how it's getting matched, the interpretation of what is a similar or related term, like it's just, there's so many head scratchers when you look in there. And again, that's assuming that you can see, although we did get some good news that, supposedly the query data is they are trying to work on a way to bring more of that back. So I've got my fingers crossed.
I will be dancing in the streets, popping champagne. It'll be a party.
You will hear the whoop of joy coming from me if that actually comes to pass. You'll hear it across the entire country. I swear, I will be so happy. But the way it is now, like it's hard from what you can see from the limited amount of stuff you can see. And you can see more, you can still see more in analytics, by the way. They have not closed that loophole yet. So you can get more insight if you're looking at the queries in analytics than you will see in the Google Ads interface. But yeah, I don't know. It's disheartening because there's so many things that it feels like it should be better as far as being able to understand what some of the, related terms are. And it just feels like it doesn't. And then you look at the recommendations for like what it wants you to add and you're thinking like, oh my God, the machine that knows nothing, like it really, wow. So I don't know. I feel like that piece has a long way to go before it's really, you just have to watch it so closely. And, you really have to stretch your brain in ways to think about like, how could this go off the rails in ways that I never even imagined? So yeah.
Just more bad news there. Yeah. I hope Ginny's working on it. I'm optimistic. Maybe by the time this episode drops, we'll have news. We don't know. Okay.
That is very optimistic.
That is.
You got a dream.
I like it though. I like it.
Anastasia, what do you think? Have you seen an impact from the phase out of broad match modified in your account or the new phrase match?
Yeah, well, I'm still seeing issues with phrase and even exact close match variants on Google. But I would say recently, Microsoft has been just terrible to the point where we're getting refunds for our keywords. And I've been tweeting about it. A lot of people experience the same thing. Pretty much everybody who work at Stella now, and I see them, they are looking at their terms and seeing some irrelevant terms they can't get refund for. So that's been really a problem for us lately. So I think in terms of the broad match modified depreciation, we are seeing, losing volume in certain campaigns where we use those keywords, but we always have phrase keywords these days, and just replacing them. Actually, you can quickly replace them in Google Ads right now. So change from broad match modified to phrase. But at this point, I think we also rethinking our campaign structure as well, because now with the close match variants, I used to be like avid scagger. I used to have scags everywhere.
Oh, really?
Then, kind of faded away from that. Now scags won't work. I don't separate my campaigns by match types anymore, unless it's broad. Broad is I'm a little bit more cautious about, but kind of mix them all together. I'm also thinking differently about match types as well, and what type of keywords I'm using for certain match types. If it's phrase, I'm trying to use a little bit more of a long tail keywords to give more direction to Google. But again, you have to be really good balance, because sometimes you're using very long tail keywords, but then you're not getting any traffic.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
so RIP Skags. We never used them here, so I didn't realize close variants were making them worse. Man, Skag enthusiast. You should add that to your business card. I love it.
I just missed the word.
I missed the word for sure.
Yeah.
But wait, someone brought it up like a different term, and kind of similar to Skags, when you actually structure your keywords by theme or by service. So there's a new term.
Stag. They were talking about stags.
Yes.
Oh,
there's a new term.
Stag. Single theme ad group.
Mark, what do you think? Do you have any strategies to combat bad matching?
Yes. So I saw and I've said these things before. So sorry to, well, I shouldn't say, PETA says to say, feed a fed horse. But I recently had accounts where I've had to turn Microsoft Ads off because I can't even keep up with support in the way that you were saying, Anastasia, and getting the refunds. It's just been so bad. I've just had to turn Microsoft Ads off for some accounts because the close variants are so bad. And then with Google, I recently had an account with my lowest search term percentage showing ever. It was I could only see 35% of clicks attributed to search terms. And that was so egregiously
Heartbreaking.
low. But it's kind of the same strategy we've been saying from the beginning, kind of doing a find and replace to identify close variant exact match negatives. So sometimes words like software will be swapped for system, or like words like system will just be dropped entirely. So kind of looking at your keyword list and thinking, okay, which words is Google going to drop because they don't think they're important, but they are important to me, and kind of doing a find and replace on that and come up with some exact match negatives to add in. And also, I always come back to the tip from Andrea Cruz to use Keyword Planner to feed your negative lists, and type in your keywords and see what Google suggests and pick out all of the bad ones and use those as negatives and use that to feed your negative lists. And of course, Microsoft Ads, despite having much worse close variant matching, they show search terms even if you just have one impression. So you can see kind of possible bad close variants and take those from Microsoft and apply them to Google. And I think you just need to be much tighter with the keywords that you're targeting, possibly using audiences with broader keywords, and watching all of those high spenders.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like when I'm looking at the Microsoft search term report, I need like a cocktail. Just first of all, the sheer volume, because you get so much more. And then the bad matching, like Anastasia said, it's so egregious there.
And then it's like, didn't I already negate that sometimes with Microsoft?
Okay, so I was going to talk about targeting next, but we did that a lot in the beginning. So let's move on to ads. We did touch on DSAs a little bit, but Julie, a year ago, we thought we were losing expanded text ads, remember? But we still got them for now. So what is working well for you on search with ads?
I am trying to embrace the responsive search ads. It varies. I think it's funny. So like we still have the expanded text ads. I feel like you have to add the for now, onto there, because you go, I was working on setting up some new ads the other day, and man, it's hard they don't make it easy to get to the screen where you could create a expanded text ad, as opposed to, it's like, nope, RSA, that's it. That's all I got, put in all the pieces. I'm trying to, the RSAs, they take more time, I think, to know what's happening. And they take a different, it's again, like, I feel like the theme for this last year and a half, and it's going to continue, is like, just like shifting your mindset and being willing to be flexible and how you think about things and how you're doing things. Because you would think that writing components for a responsive search ad is essentially just multiplying out what you would do if you were writing the regular text ads. And at first blush, it seems like that's what you would do, right? But I found that if you think about it that way, you write crappy ads. Like you're like, oh, I filled in all this stuff. I feel like I have a good blend of things. And then it's like, then you get the little score, right, from Google. It's like, that's not very good. And they'll limit you, right? If you're not meeting their criteria for what they think is a decent set of components for RSA, they're gonna limit your impressions and how much they're going to serve it. So for me, I think it's been opening up a little bit more to try to think of different, we're so used to writing the text ads where you have like small variations in the components that you might write. If you're writing like 2 or 3 different versions of an ad, the stuff that's going to be in there is going to be fairly similar, but you're trying out like different variations. And I think for me, what I'm starting to realize is for the RSAs, you have to almost set that mindset aside a little bit. And you do really have to come up with components that are more different from each other than what we're used to doing in creating the text ads. And then you just have to pray that the ones that they put together make some kind of reasonable sense. I mean, you can pin certain things and whatnot, but again, you're getting into that space where it's like, well, then you're hamstringing the automation, which is supposed to find the best combinations, and how much do you want to be getting in the way of that? And that's sort of a question that's still, on the table. But I think being a little bit more like creative or flexible with yourself when you're doing the RSA stuff. For me, that has made the RSAs perform a bit better.
Yeah, you got to trust. It is so hard when you see the bad combinations in the SERPs, though, and you're like,
I know, it's awful.
Yeah, you just hope the client isn't seeing a crazy combination.
Yeah.
Mark, what about extensions? You mentioned that lead form extensions are kind of a miss, at least for now. Is there anything that is working well, really well for B2B right now?
Yeah, well, one actually that I've never been able to use promotion extensions before in B2B, because if your clients don't run promotions as often in B2B, it's just a fact. There might be like a quarterly promotion every once in a while, but they don't always want to put it in ads. And so I finally got to use promotion extensions recently with a client, and it worked really well. The extension itself drew far more conversions than any other sort of promotion oriented advertising we did around this promotion, and I absolutely loved it. I will use promotion extensions every time now.
Anastasia, anything that's working well for you?
I would say, we're trying to adopt RSAs, and it's harder with some of the B2B clients because they have legal issues when it comes to ad copy. They need to have sign off in certain copy in certain version. So for those clients, it's just really difficult right now because we have to pin things, and that doesn't work with Google. For retail, when it comes to retail e-com, I do use a lot of ad customizers, and because some of the clients have a ton of promotions, like weekly promotion or flash promo, we have to update our ads all the time, or even use some of the extensions, but ads has to be updated. So I use ad customizers business data feeds for me to kind of dynamically update my headlines and descriptions, so I don't have to pause and activate ads all the time. So it really takes a lot of legwork, especially if your account is large, right? So the RSA is not really working with ad customizers just yet. I think they're rolling out something, but also when it comes to RSAs, if I'm thinking about promos, if I need to change my ads, even during Black Friday or big sales, it's just so much copywriting. So it takes a lot of time to update those ads. So we're still like exploring the solutions for some of those clients. Of course, for big promos, we always want to change the ad copy. We do use promo extensions; they do work well. I agree with Mark. And actually, from something that new just came out, image extension working well for retail clients. Again, the image is so small that you can't really show any lifestyle image. It just has to be like a product or something like that. But those extensions driving higher click-through rate and higher conversion rate. But something that didn't work is lead extensions, just not showing the performance that we want. And price extensions, actually, I'm testing them right now. Surprisingly, they're just not showing the same click-through rate. Yeah, and conversion rate is much lower. I guess people are kind of like scared by the prices.
Yeah,
that was shown. But yeah, that's what
cool.
We've been testing.
That's so fun that you get to use customizers. I always forget about them. You get to use all the fun stuff.
I know.
Okay, quickly, a little smorgasbord here. I want to ask you all what is working for all other campaign types. So anything you want to give a shout out for: video, display, shopping, discovery, performance max. I know you love those, Anastasia. What else is working in your accounts? I'll start with you.
Actually, we've been running a lot of RDAs, or responsive display ads. Those been working well when compared to some of the standard display ads. I like those because you have a lot of components in there. You can start image, text, and also video. So we're seeing increases in reach and volume. Click-through rate is higher too. And if you actually use also D2C, if you use dynamic component, you can show products to people. Again, remarket some of your customers. That works so well with RDAs, and I guess that's why also we see success with those.
That's great. What about you, Mark?
This is a very small tidbit, but something I did not realize existed for a long time is that when you add individual placements in a display campaign, Google will recommend similar websites to you that have ad inventory. And I never realized this before because I'm always bulk adding sites that I know have ad inventory. And I'm like, this is really cool. Well, like when a client comes to you with one particular website that they want to show on, that you can come back to them with 10 additional sites that would be a good fit. And it's kind of like, we need like a keyword planner tool for site placements. And that's kind of the best that we'll get there. And then one other thing, just with the change of custom intent and custom affinity being phased out for audience types, that I've kind of stopped using URLs as to seed custom audiences, and have completely switched to just using search keywords, because you need that intent there in order for that to be effective. And I've seen much more success with changing everything to being search keyword driven for custom audiences for display.
Awesome. Julie, what's working for you?
I'm going to echo both of these brilliant folks and say that the responsive display ads are definitely better. When a client wants to do like, oh, we made a bunch of ads, I'm like, oh, great. Can we have the pieces? Because you're missing out on inventory. You can just see it. Like if you have, I have a couple of clients where, they really wanted to have their set, ads. And I convinced them, like, can we also run, a responsive one to, kind of see what happens. And you can see the difference, I think. Google favors the responsive over the static ones a lot. So I would highly encourage, again, you run into similar issues potentially with, compliance and that type of thing. But if you have the option to do it, that can be a nice little lift. And I have been doing the managed placements forever. And I feel like the way that Google does stuff now, with the amount of garbage that you will get in the placements, if you're just sort of doing it more generally, it's a headache and a half, but it's worth. You can start to compile your own lists of placements that are going to be appropriate for different types of clients and different types of industries. I feel like that's a really good place to spend some time right now, because it's super easy if you're not doing that to run up against that 10,000 exclusion placements cap. I have a number of clients where they didn't want to do managed placements. Like, no, we don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, within inside of like 6 weeks, we had already hit the 10,000 exclusion, cap. And then you're out of luck. Like you can't add any more exclusions. You're just taking everything that Google wants to give you. So
wow.
Yeah, it's good times.
That's a lot to manage.
It is. So that's why, like the managed placement piece, it's like a little bit more front loaded work, because you're having to kind of come up with ideas, but Google will give you some pretty good suggestions, and they'll send you down some paths that can help you to build out those lists. But like save those lists so that you know where you want to start next time, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's a good place to put some time and energy, because the GDN can work great and it can be a complete waste of money. So the more that you can do to sort of like put some serious guardrails on where things can show up, I feel like you're going to be better positioned for better results for whatever, funds are being put on that side of things.
Awesome. Great advice there. And to go back to RDAs for a second, I think it was this year we got a few more options for RDAs. Like you can decide whether or not it's allowed to be a video and the native format. Mm-hmm. So I hope they do more there. I love RDAs. Yeah,
but I want them to fix the disapprovals on RDAs, as I was tweeting the other day, because they used, if an individual image was disapproved, or they used to tell you which image it was. And for some reason recently, they're like, you're disapproved or limited for poor image quality, or the image not meeting their other guidelines, is saying it's like a misleading ad design. But then they don't tell you, and you're looking against Google's guidelines. And I'm like, I can't figure out which image it is. None of these have fake click buttons or text fields or anything that would be misleading. I don't know what you're talking about. And you end up just having to clone the ad and start over. I'm
like
I'm
my
at a
favorite
loss.
thing on PPC chat right now is people sharing the images that have been disapproved that are like
Yes.
someone's hand or something. For
Adult content.
I know, if you show a little part of, like, I have a client who sells jewelry, and of course you show a hand or like some part of body, right, where you have jewelry on, and it always gets flagged for adult content. I'm like, I'm not showing nudity. It's just
so
a
funny.
hand.
This is a bracelet.
It's a bracelet, yeah.
Okay, and next I want to talk about automation. Google and Microsoft both heavily push campaign automation in advertisers and are always launching new automated bid strategies, campaign types, ad types, and settings. It's every day it's something new. And automation can mean a lot of things. So let's start with the lower end of this, where you can have automation with some large levers. So I'm thinking of like target CPA or responsive search ads that we talked about. Do you guys find yourself using a lot of this, I'll call it human-powered automation, more than you have in the past? And is there anything going well or poorly with guided automation from where you see it? Julie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm trying to embrace as much as I can. As I was talking about earlier, some of the bidding stuff is hard with the B2B. The conversion volume and the number of conversions you would get per day, per week, at least in my accounts and what I found, it often struggles. The bidding pieces struggle to really gain momentum and really learn enough, I think, to really, really be effective. But the ads, the responsive ads, or I don't know if you put like DSA in that category as well.
Yeah.
But I think some of the stuff that you can do with ads where you're putting in a certain amount of input, whether it's DSA, deciding on the page or the group of pages that you want it to target, or whether it's the responsive search ads. I feel like those are places where it's smart to be figuring out how to make some of those things work, because it hasn't been announced that those are going to be the only way to do things in the future. But it's not hard to imagine that we could certainly get to a place where those really are the only options. So I think it's always smart to be hedging against what you've been doing that is still having success, and then experimenting with the newer pieces to figure out how to be able to make those work. Because the last thing you want is to be in a place where you've done nothing, or you've done only a little bit as far as learning to work with some of the newer technologies. And then, it's announced that like, oh, by the way, in 2 months, you're not going to be able to have, text ads anymore. So just trying to be a little bit forward thinking and be testing things and being able to sort of figure out what sort of works in different scenarios with different types of clients. I think that's a smart way to go at this, where we are in the evolution.
Yeah. So going back to the bidding, Julie, there are probably people listening to this who are still only using manual bidding. What do you think you would say to them? Do you think that they still will be soon, or?
I would say first, I get it. I get it. Because for the accounts that don't have the conversion volume, it is the best option in some cases, because the smart bidding, the automation, it doesn't know what to do. So part of me feels like I should be saying you need to figure out a different way to do it. And I do feel like we are going to reach a point, again, that horizon is undefined right now, but I do believe we're going to reach a point where the manual is not even going to be an option anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't know how soon that's going to be. And I also don't know how much better the smart bidding stuff will get. Will they be able to find a way for it to be more efficient and work better for non-e-com accounts? That's kind of the big question, right? Or are we just going to have to kind of deal with lesser performance if you're not e-com, if and when the option to, still do certain things manually goes away? I don't have the answer to that. But I think, again, continuing to try to dip your feet in and figure out if there are ways that you can make things work on a small scale. You don't have to go whole hog and convert everything that you're doing, but you should be trying to, figure out how it might work, how it wouldn't work, fill in some of those blanks for yourself across as many accounts as you can, because you might see different things in different types of accounts. So the more you can kind of get your hands dirty when it comes to some of this stuff, I think it will serve you well as we go kind of, into the unknown.
Yeah. So scary. I feel
I
like this
know.
episode could be like a time capsule. We'll listen to it in 5 years and there's no keywords and it's just sad.
Yeah, I know. It could, well,
Like we had it so good back then.
I know, the good old days.
Anastasia, what do you think of this automation light? What are you using and finding success with?
I'll be honest, I do use manual CPC, the manual bidding in some campaigns and some accounts. This even human-powered automation really works for clients and brands that have a lot of historical performance, a lot of historical data. Google keeps saying like, oh, we don't have the threshold for conversions anymore to test TCPA or TRS, which was before, like you need to have 30 conversions in 30 days. But I did notice that if you have that strong conversion volume, if you have some performance, historical performance, your automation will work much better because you need to feed this automation, this algorithm, the right data. And if you don't have any data, no conversions, you won't be able to really ramp those campaigns up. And I noticed that automations really struggles and tend to freeze up for some of those accounts. So for brands and clients that's starting out and had no experience in Google Ads, we do recommend to start with manual CPCs or whatever enhanced CPC is, gather that performance data, and then kind of build off of those learnings and apply automation.
And there's some accounts where manual is just the only way to go. And to be clear, when you say manual, do you always leave the enhanced box checked or do you ever have completely manual?
I did notice that I leave it on.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I actually leave it on. I don't know if it's really doing much, but yeah.
Mark, what light automation is working for you?
Yeah, I am really big agree on that point where you always need to start with manual or enhanced CPC, both because of what Anastasia said, where you need to seed information into the automation first before it can actually do anything. You need to have that conversion history, but also, in my opinion, you need to have something to compare the automation to. Like you don't really know the automation is working if you can't look back at the eCPC either in an experiment or in past campaign performance to see how many search terms you can see, what the performance is, what the conversion rate is, how the mappings are. You need to have kind of a control to compare that back to in order to know if it is actually working and is better than enhanced or manual CPC. And another note is that kind of in that same vein where you need that information to start, a lot of times in B2B, we segment our campaigns in certain ways that make sense for us, but they don't always make sense in terms of getting enough conversions in a 30-day period to be able to use automated bidding. There just won't be enough information for the machine to actually make that work. And again, speaking to features that I always like scoffed at and never used, portfolio bidding actually has worked very well for me here in terms of B2B accounts with lower conversion volumes that I want to test, target CPA or target ROAS for. And I actually have a transactional B2B client right now where manual CPC just wasn't cutting it. We couldn't get returns for them. And we wanted to use target ROAS, but those campaigns did not have the conversion history. And we set up portfolio bidding with the target ROAS being fed by the RLSA and branded campaigns. And that was actually able to help bring the non-branded and the DSA campaigns up using that conversion information. So portfolio bidding, it doesn't always work. Sometimes it still won't work, but it is something to try when you don't have that conversion volume in order to feed those algorithms.
Awesome. Another feature I forget about sometimes. So thanks for the reminder. So now let's talk about a little scarier, the full automation where you just really have to trust the process and leave it up to the machine. So my examples for this are smart shopping and performance max, automated recommendations, God forbid, smart campaigns. Anastasia, I know you deal with a lot of this, thoughts and prayers. What are you seeing? Can you talk about any fully automated strategies that work or don't work?
Well, again, going back to smart shopping, it's been working well for some retail clients in the past, and it actually outperforms some of the traditional campaigns. We do have also a hybrid approach on some clients. So it's not always smart shopping. But recently we've been getting actually dealing with some challenges on the smart shopping side. It was performing well, but now we need to scale it, and the more you push, the less profitable you get. It's really hard to keep that campaign profitable. And we also noticed that for some clients that they have really large product feed, it's not that it's not working, but majority of products just doesn't get a lot of visibility. So Google keeps prioritizing, keeps pushing some of the top performing items. So now we're exploring some options. We have strategies in terms of structure and segmentation to avoid that issue, but it's still not working perfectly. And Google itself actually now saying to me, maybe try standard shopping campaigns for this product, which is surprising, so they're going back on some of their own tools. And now I'm considering more and more of a hybrid approach rather than having multiple smart shopping campaigns and account for some of those brands. I also know that, you mentioned the auto apply recommendations. Google is pushing very, very hard on it. We actually started adopting some of those, and some of those are, harmless, like removing redundant keywords or things like ad audience reporting and things like that. So that the recommendations that focus more of on account hygiene, we've been using more and more. I do say that RSA recommendation or any keyword recommendation is just not useful right now. It's just not as intuitive. And the versions that they presenting to us are just atrocious. It's, RSA is a bunch of brand name is in every headline and every description. Like, what are you even saying here? It doesn't make sense. So there's still, they need to work on some of those recommendations. They're not as smart, but we are adopting a few of those right now.
And it is nice that they sound so scary, the automated recommendations, but I do forget sometimes that you can choose the ones you're going to opt into. It's nice to have that control. Mark, what about you? Is anything working really well for you with this fully automated world?
I don't even try it with, I need to have control, especially with my B2B clients. Google just doesn't understand the intricacies of the products that I'm selling. And I can't trust any of this. I mean, shopping campaigns and Performance Max will likely never apply to what I'm doing. And automated recommendations, I just can't do it. I had a client that had them turned on when I was taking over the account, and they were a design software for enterprise marketing automation platforms for email and landing pages. And the keywords that were automatically applied were just garbage. Like anything related to email marketing was in there, and the ads made no sense. And I'm like, this all needs to be turned off. I can't use any of it. Maybe in the future it will be at that point, but right now I cannot risk doing any of this fully automated stuff.
Mm-hmm. Julie, is anything working well for you?
Well, the Performance Max and the shopping are not really applicable. And I'm going to agree with Mark. Like the auto applied is a hard no for me. I feel like I can check, certain things that they're recommending and maybe apply it, but just scanning it. Or I also had a client who had them applied when I took it over, and I didn't realize that they were applied at first. I'm like, what is happening? And then you go and you're like, oh, okay. Yes, that's happening. And I think, so that's a hard no for me. I hope it gets better. But right now it's more aggravation, and it creates more work, at least for the kind of stuff that I'm working on. So Maybe someday.
Yeah. But sometimes when you read those ad suggestions, it makes you feel really good about your job security. So that's always nice to see.
I mean, it does, but at the same time, it makes you feel like, wow, I could, completely put in like 20% effort and still be writing better ads. But it also kind of makes you feel like, are we going to get to a point where like, it's a bit horrifying to think like, where on the horizon is it going to be that like, this stuff is just going to be happening? Like, I don't know. I try not to think about that too long because it makes me, get a little bit of agita, but yeah.
Yeah. And kind of the scariest part about it is as they're pushing this automation, they're always taking more data away. They're taking our keywords away. And so does that make you more hesitant to try these fully automated strategies?
Yeah, I'm a huge trust but verify person, right? When it comes to this kind of stuff. So it's like, I want to be able to put my faith in what's happening, and I want to be able to see the results, but I also want to understand why it's working. And one of my big frustrations with a lot of the automation is a lot of the stuff that I do with the data definitely is directly tied to what I'm doing in PPC, like in the search ads, in the campaigns, but I take information from one place and I utilize it someplace else. And I do that a lot. Whether it's like across platforms, whether it's, or one land pages, like I take a lot of information that I glean from different areas. And then I try to, utilize it in other ways. And the less you're able to see, the less I have available to use in that way. So it cuts down on the ability to be able to be full spectrum. And also in the ways you're able to talk to clients about things. Like you can't give them the same type of insights, I don't think, as the data is being pulled back and pulled back and pulled back. We're able to see less things. We're able to make fewer connections, I think, now than perhaps you were able to do when you were able to see more. I mean, and this is true on all the platforms too. Like you can't see as much, in what's going on in Facebook. You used to have like great insights into audiences and that kind of thing too. And like that's all pulled back. So the lessening of information that's available, I think has like a larger, more global effect on how you're able to do things and how you're able to contextualize things for clients. And it's a net negative.
It's hard. Anastasia, what do you think? As you're testing Smart Shopping and Performance Max, how are you verifying that they're working if you have such limited data?
I think going back to what Mark was saying, you really have to compare it to standard, either search or standard shopping campaigns. It's harder and harder because actually Smart Shopping always gets prioritized when it comes to your display marketing ads or your standard shopping campaigns. But you still, kind of do that and compare to those campaigns because there's no other option. I think, it's hard because I was manually bidding until the end and really was reluctant to try some of the automation because it's not as smart. I was kind of waiting out for Google to make some changes, update some of those tools. But I think it's really kind of impossible not to really get into it because as we all saying right now, manual CPC or manual bidding is going to go away. ETA will probably go away. So we do need to try some of those things and some of those tools, because the more experience you have with those, the more data you have, the more insight and learnings you have to make them work better in the future. And that's where we did the Smart Shopping, because we started so early for some clients. Now we have certain strategies or certain kind of formula how to make those campaigns work.
Definitely. Okay, so to wrap this up, I want to look ahead. So first, with kind of a downer here, what do you think will be the biggest challenges in PPC advertising in the coming months? Mark, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be much more of a need to be finding a more creative path to success. I think things are definitely a lot harder now because of the loss of data and kind of being forced to adopt features that we aren't necessarily thrilled about. So I think there's going to be much more of a need of taking a creative approach to what we're doing in terms of PPC. And I think probably the best way to describe this is what Julie said earlier, of figuring out how to use these new features that we don't necessarily think are the best fits for our clients, but finding better ways to use them as like an off-label approach, or as match types change and keywords aren't as strong, how can we use broader keywords, whether it's literally broad match or broader keywords in terms of the makeup of the term, and combining that with in-market audiences, and just thinking about things a little bit differently than we have.
Awesome. Julie, what do you think? What do you see as the biggest challenges in the coming months, and what are you excited about in the coming months?
I think the challenge is, I'm going to echo, what Mark was saying. I think it's a combination of wanting to be more tightly targeted in what you're doing and having fewer options in which to do that. I feel like that's a rub that's going to be exacerbated in the coming, 6 to 12 months, because if you couple that with the increased volume of competition, it's a bit nasty in some, in some industries. So you've got more people competing and you have less of an ability to target more narrowly. I think those two things are going to be challenging. So finding creative ways to hit that sweet spot where you're not being so limited that you're not getting, at the volume that you need, but you're not opening it up to the point where you're wasting spend, and you're matching for all kinds of things that are clearly irrelevant and aren't going to convert. I think figuring that puzzle out is going to be, what we're going to be spending a lot of time on. I'm hopeful, as we said earlier, that some of that query data, at least on the Google side, will come back. It's nice.
Fingers crossed.
I know it's really nice being able to see it on the Microsoft side. However, it's a different environment and the volume's different. So I think taking advantage of what you can find on the Microsoft side and pre-seeding things into Google to help cut down on some of the nonsense makes sense. But it would be just amazing if we could have, even 50% of the data that's currently being hidden back. I think that would make a big difference in the parts that are going to be more challenging going forward.
I think it's going to get better based on Jenny's tweet. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed.
I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic.
Well, I said on the show last week, it can't get worse, but it probably could. So I shouldn't say that. Okay. Anastasia, I'll end with you. What do you see as the biggest challenges in the coming months, and what are you the most excited about?
I think I'll echo both. You have to be more creative about everything you're doing right now. You're going to have less and less visibility in data, especially now we get more into automation. I think also some of the privacy issues will be a challenge, cookieless future and things like that, not only for us as marketers, but also for Google, because Google is those automated or smart campaigns working off some of the user behavior signals that will be lost at some point, right? I think more and more I've seen Google actually take an ability to target certain demographics or certain audiences on Google due to some of the privacy issues, HEC policy that actually came out last October. So we've been dealing with those quite a bit. And again, you have to be find a different way to make your campaigns efficient and effective, because to Julie's point, the competition is rising and CPCs are doubling year over year.
Awesome. It is now officially not marketing a talk. Thank you, Anastasia, Mark, and Julie for joining me. Julie Bacchini is the president of Neptune Moon. You can also catch her on Twitter, where she moderates PPC chat on Tuesdays at noon, and on Twitter, and Twitter Spaces Thursdays at noon, right, Julie?
Yes, I'm everywhere. If you want to find me, Twitter, you can always find me hanging out on Twitter.
Yes. And you are at Neptune Moon, right?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Anastasia Sorokina is an associate director of search engine marketing at Stella Rising. Anastasia, where can our listeners reach you?
You can reach me on Twitter. I'm there a lot at Anna_Sorok. It's like a little bit of beginning of my last name. And you can also reach me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And Mark Saltarelli is a digital marketing manager at Cypress North. You can catch him with me on Marketing O'Clock every Friday. Mark, where can people get in touch with you?
Yes, same. You can find me on Twitter at Marketing by Mark on Twitter, and LinkedIn as well, Mark T. Saltarelli.
Thanks again for being here. If you are looking for digital marketing news and a lot of really bad puns, please be sure to subscribe. We release new episodes with Jess Budd and Greg Finn every Friday, in addition to these special roundtables that we're releasing every month. And we've now done a whole year. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this. And we will see you next month.